First of all, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Reza, and I salute you for your great endeavor and efforts pertaining on organizing such great events. And I hope that the topic that I will be discussed may add some value to our beloved attendees. First of all, I will divide the subject into three parts. But before that, is my voice is it clear?
Yes, excellent.
Excellent, good to know that. So I will start by a brief history about the US and how the decision making is being done in United States. As you know, that United States, it's a republic which has been established since more than 240 years. It has been established since 245 years, and mainly we call them the fathers of the United States, or the AKA the seven wise men. We may know some of these wise men, such as Benjamin Franklin, who never been president. You can see his picture on the $100 bill. And in addition to that, George Washington. So these people, when they have the system over there, actually it was a little bit complicated. Where you know that in such big country, where the main major concern was to promote and establish democracy. Part of this experience was inspired from the French system, but it has been developed, and various influencers and decision makers were integrated later on. To sum up, when we talk about the decision making in the United States, we hear some people, of course, I know that our topic is not just about the United States, but I mean, I will just pave the way for the main subject. So again, when we talk about the United States decision makers, we sometimes hear the term establishments. Sometimes we hear the term who take decision. Maybe the Congress. Some says that there are some formal institutions. Actually, the decision-making process is being taken by and being collaborated by two main pillars. These main pillars, first of all, we have the formal pillar, the first pillar, the formal pillar, and the opposite, or the other pillar, which is the non-formal pillars. To give an example about these formal pillars, we may discuss and offer some examples, some few examples, such as, you know, that the State Department, such as Pentagon, such as the Central Intelligence Agency, such as the National Security Agency, NSA, such as internally the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the economic body, which is the Federal Reserve. These are the formal bodies. As you know, as I believe you have noticed that I didn't mention the Congress, because I will mention why later on. The other body, it is also giving some examples, such as the strategic institutes that usually offers research and studies, such as like yours, Dr. Ahmad, such as the lobbies. We have, you know, I'm talking here just about the political lobbies and not those who may integrate the political decision makers, because also there is another lobby, also we call them the corporates, okay? And the elite groups or elite lodges. Mainly these elite groups are divided, and one is located in DC, District of Columbia, Washington, DC. And the other one, when we say District of Columbia, this means it's the political capital, whereas the financial capital, which is New York. So there is another body which is located in New York, state of New York. To continue, we also hear this term about the dogs and hawks theory, that Republicans are hawks and the Democrats are the doves. And this is also, I believe, here there is a misunderstanding about this point. Just to clarify here that I'm not a Democrat nor a Republican. But to clarify here, because what I may say may sound that I'm defending the Democrats or maybe I'm close to Democrats, which is not the case. Of course, also I'm not also that close. I'm close to both parties. So when talking about the doves and hawks theory, and it's commonly used here in the Middle East, we may mention some incidents which prove that the what could be what could we think that the doves are the Republicans is not true. It's a fallacy. For instance, I will start also discussing and going through some historical events. Starting, for example, when we mention what has been done by Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, he was calling to free slaves. Most of them were black. All of them actually were black people. So he was Republican. Abraham Lincoln, he was a Republican. So he was calling for humanitarian cause, and thus led, of course, there were other reasons, to the national war. On the contrary, on the other side, if we take the incidents of the World War II, and mainly the person who ordered to drop the nuclear bomb against in Japan, against Japan, mainly against they were dropped in Hiroshima city and the other one in Nagasaki. So the one who had ordered this was Harry Truman. Harry Truman was a Democrat. So he took a tough decision, which consequently led to kill more than 700 or 500, 600,000 people. Many hundreds casualties were died in this incident. Some people talk that when Donald Trump was in office, he ordered to eliminate Soleimani. Where prior to that, I know that Obama was not that a great period. We know that, but he also has ordered to eliminate Bin Laden, Osama bin Laden, in return. Uh, Also, another the theory of having a besiege against Iran. Actually, the roots of this theory goes back to the theorist called Zbigniew Brzezinski. Zbigniew Brzezinski was a Democrat. So to sum out now the following part, I will be discussing the current situation in the region. In the current situation in the region, we know we have different rivals, and these rivals are trying to improve their situations in the region. I mean, of course, the Middle East, as we're now talking about the topic. So we're talking about the major influencer, and the clashes not mainly are emerging between the GCC countries, part of them, mainly Iran, mainly Saudi Arabia and UAE, not the Arab Emirates. We have now the interventions been escalated in the last few years, the Turkish intervention, the Iranian intervention, which has been established prior to that, because the Iranian doctrine is based on exporting their revolution abroad, there or outside their borders. Outside their borders. So let me here just focus on when we say Iran, what does this mean? Iran usually, and after the coup d'etat, which took over Shah in 1979, the Iranians at that time, and they went after that quickly, rapidly through their war against the Iraqis. And after that, it seems that they have learned a lot. Why is that? Because when we analyze the situation in the status in mainly pertaining the Iranian Iranian forces, we found out that the Iranians did not invest and continue investing their efforts in their classical armors and weapons. So, for instance, during the Shah regime, they used to produce tanks called Shir. The tank that they used to produce it called Shir. They have stopped that. We know that the Iranians they used to have they relying too much on the U.S. aircraft, the Phantom. The Phantom are too old. They did not renew them. What they have focused on is developing their missiles. And when we talk about this massive force, we divided into two parts. We have what we call the cruise missiles and the ballistic missiles. The cruise missiles, those are hard and not easy to detect by radars. And these can reach up to, or more sometimes, than 2,000 kilometers. Mainly also they have two types. They have one called the Ya'ali and the other one called Somar. What can these missiles do? These missiles can, of course, reach all over the GCC countries, the Gulf countries, and mostly important, may reach Israel, especially if they were launched from Yemen. From Yemen, so we can see that the Iranians and their allies they are eager and they keep on trying to dominate the Yemenis and control Yemen due to various strategic reasons. So the other type of missiles, which are the ballistic missiles, and those are usually could be detected by radars. Also, when we analyze the Iranian forces and army, they have what we call them the nano or small submarines. What can they do? These submarines may cause a serious damage against the oil tankers, and they are highly efficient because they're not easy also to be detected. They are fast and they are many. There are plenty of them. So this is so when we describe the Iranian forces, we can call it we can consider it under the norm of asymmetric. It's asymmetric. What do I mean by asymmetric? It means that it is that doesn't have homogeneity. It's heterogenic, asymmetric, doesn't have equality. So you can see that the air forces they are not that advanced. We can see that the classical like the tanks power is not that advanced, where they make it up through the high advancements in their missile power and their submarine. In addition, that they have alliances and paramilitary groups which are capable in doing fights and combats in cities. Meaning they are well trained for guerrilla warfare, like Hezbollah, like the Hashid Shabi in Iraq, like the Iranian Revolutionary Guard (IRG), and others. On the other hand, when we discuss also the Turkish power, as we know that the Turkish they have intervened for various reasons in various countries in the region, mainly in Syria, by supporting the various, between quotation, revolutionary groups, and somehow in Iraq because they are have some concerns regarding against the Kurds in both countries, and recently we have witnessed their intervention in Libya. Sorry for just made it mute. So the Turkish, of course, they rely more on the classical arms. They have aircrafts, an standing army, which was designed during the USSR to stand against the USSR army. If any potential attack has been occurred. So also, it's considered one of the major armies which has advanced technology, and it has equivalence they have well-developed aircraft, well-developed airborne forces, and land forces. Now, to sum up the current situation, just focused here about some the major players and their military power pertaining the U.S. Policy. The U.S. policy in the Middle East, they believe that there is a major challenge against the Chinese. And the Middle East, it's still and will remain represent some value in the future, but also they need to calm down the area. And this plan has been introduced not from now. When we discussed the vision, and again, I will go back to the decision makers, the powers, the pillars over there. When the decision making, when the vision was introduced, and there was, it has been discussed in the early 80s by Bernard Lewis. Bernard Lewis, at that time, he offered a draft which has been discussed by these influencers, and later on, this vision pertaining the Middle East has been discussed during one of the Congress sessions by Condoleezza Rice in 2005. When they have mentioned something called the New Middle East, establishing a new Middle East. When discussed the what happened from since 2005 till current, till the time being, we can witness that during when Condoleezza Rice was in office, it was during the George W. administration period, George W. Bush administration, and the major influences was by going and invading Iraq, and the withdrawal of the Syrian occupation forces. This is one from Lebanon, Syrian occupation forces from Lebanon. After that, a new administration took over, of course, through elections, and Barack Obama was elected. He was elected. So Barack Obama, what was done during his period, I'm not talking about if it was great or bad. This is, we can do plenty of circles and seminars about this topic. I believe this is not our main topic today. So during Barack Obama, there were also major radical changes which have been occurred, like what we call it the Arab Revolution, the Arab Revolution, the Arab Spring Revolution, the Arab Spring Revolution. As a consequence, many systems were eliminated, they fell down, and they were substituted with some new systems. This was has been started in Tunisia, then Egypt, then Libya. Then we have witnessed the incidents in Syria, and so on. After that, after 2 mandates during the Obama period, when Obama and the Democrats lost the elections, Donald Trump was elected, and one of his major achievements pertaining in shaping or reshaping this new Middle East was the encouragement of the peace process, where we have witnessed peace agreements between the Israelis and mainly the GCC countries and other countries like Sudan. Now in this period, what could be done, and I emphasize on one point here that the administration of the United States, they usually engage and they are being involved in applying the tactical parts of the vision. So the vision is static, whereas what could be movable is the tactics. So they could be altered and changed from an administration against other administration. So now on, during Joe Biden period, where there is expectation that many cases will be closed and accomplished, and this will be through the continuity of the peace process and the change of the regimes. There will be amendment in the regimes in the area in order to communicate and comply with the diversity in the region. So these changes, and as we know that Joe Robinette Biden was one of those who were promoting federalism in Iraq, and this, of course, will be accompanied with different points, not just the system changes, the peace process, also the agreements between countries. And we now witnessing that there are negotiations being held between the Syrians, the Gulf, the GCC countries, the Israelis. The Israelis, and I've discussed this and exposed some information maybe a few months ago during one of the programs about the visits between the Israelis and the Iranians and their meetings, consecutive meetings, which were held in Damascus and Tel Aviv. So all of these, they are paving the way that will be new agreements which will lead to establish new systems in the region, and these systems will be based on creating systems which may communicate with the community needs to establish long-term peace. Because if you just do peace agreements without having communities that may live together and between the intra-groups, intra-religious and ethnic groups, such agreements may not last for too long. So that's why there is a need to amend the current systems, whether in Lebanon, whether in Syria, whether in Iraq also, whether in different countries. We may mention later on stage the Gulf, they also witnessing, and they have initiated many initiatives. They have took many initiatives regarding the amendment of their systems. And we believe that Turkish also might take some steps towards this, towards the encouragement of democracy. So thus will lead that new settlements will be formulated and adopted, new systems will be adopted in order to close these cases that are causing some headache for the United States. This doesn't mean that the United States is going to withdraw from the region. They will remain here for various reasons. But their main focus will be shifted on, and I will be listening later on to your assessment to our colleagues pertaining the Black Sea and the influence, the global influence on pertaining the other place. So this is what I have wanted to say here. I will conclude, and I will leave for if you have any Q&As.
Thank you, Dr. Riachi, for your intervention, for all this information that you give us.